Live from the Civic Media World Headquarters in Madison, Wisconsin, it's the Todd Allbaugh Show. And now, pursuing truth wherever it may lead, here's your host, Todd Allbaugh.
Across Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network and streaming worldwide on the Civic Media app. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Todd Allbaugh, along with fantastic Mr. Aaron Zommers on the board. It is 6 past the hour of 12 noon on this Thursday, March 6th, 2025. It is a great day to be a Wisconsinite. Sunny skies in downtown Madison here at the World Headquarters on State Street. Lots of school buses. Time of year, Mr. Zommers, when school districts around Wisconsin, particularly fourth graders, still take that trip here down to Madison for some Wisconsin history lessons at the state capitol.
Oh, I remember that. I'm never going to forget that trip. That was so cool.
It really is, and particularly for folks, I think, outside of a half-hour, 45-minute radius of Madison. Yeah, I still think there are families, particularly in northern Wisconsin, maybe western Wisconsin, even some in southwestern Wisconsin, where it's still a big deal to go to Madison.
It always was for me. I don't think I had ever been there before that fourth grade trip. And then until I moved here, it was only a couple of times besides that anyway.
Yeah. And again, we've been all over the state. This is not to say Madison's better than anybody else, but it's the seat of state government. The Capitol building is extraordinary, like no other building, certainly in the state of Wisconsin. And so it's it's great to get the kids down here and this time of year. Brittany Merlot is saying that a little cool today, but it's going to warm up. Maybe be for some parts of Wisconsin, a little muddy, actually, at least for that top layer, some melting going on after much of Wisconsin got several inches of snow over the last 36 hours or so. But a beautiful day today. Dave checking in New Berlin on the text line saying, Todd wearing the Civic Media swag today. Yes. For those watching on the stream, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, the like. I have I believe this is my favorite Civic Media shirt.
That's a good one.
And it's it's kind of a dark purple, a mauve, if you will, with kind of a light blue state of Wisconsin. And it has all these little circles around it. And you think, well, that kind of looks Art Deco-ish or something. No. Well, it is. But it represents the map. It's a map, basically, of our coverage area with all of our 20-some-odd stations all across the state of Wisconsin. And it shows you the vast reach of Civic Media all across the state. And then it says, tune into your community, Civic Media. And if you'd like one of these, they're available at the Civic Media Swag store. Simply go to civicmedia.us. Is it shop or store?
And click on store. Yep.
Store. All right. Thank you. Click on store and you too can be wearing one of these. I love the material in this one too. It's a lighter weight material and it's a little forgiving on the waist. They run, I don't want to say they run really big, but kind of true-ish to size. I have a large on. And I'm right between now a medium and a large until I start going on my diet and get back down to mediums. But anyway, you can get these wonderful t-shirts at civicmedia.us and store. Coming up today, by the way, Jane and Greg, Jane Matner and Greg Bach on the great show before ours, Matner and Air, they asked whether they could come on the first few minutes of our show. And I said to them, absolutely, because they have this great thing at the end of their show every day called It Shouldn't Be a Thing. And they choose some crazy, hitherto unknown story, and that just makes no sense, but yet goofy humans do it. And today, it was some goofball who went into like a K Jewelers and said he was going to buy diamonds for his girlfriend, and they laid them out for him. And he swipes them off the table and runs out the door. And in order to not be caught, he swallows them. Diamond earrings, big ones.
For those of you who may be wondering, diamonds are pretty sharp.
They're a girl's best friend, but not if they're in your intestines and stomach.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, they were just talking about, and they said, well, we need to continue this discussion.
We told them no.
On time. No,
I'm kidding.
I texted them on my Civic Media app, and I said, come on along. But they may have meetings. I don't know. But if they're listening, call, and we're always happy to give them a few minutes to carry over. So that's the kind of fun and games, along with great information every day from 10 until noon, right before us, Matt and Air on air. On our show, going to be a lot of fun in hour number 2 in particular. A What's Worse today you do not want to miss. history as well. Wisconsin dairy industry history. Oleo, better known as margarine, will be in hour number 2. So that'll be a lot of fun. Also got a cut here. Zombers has for us Brad Shimsham. That's Brian Shimsham Shimming. This Brad Schimmel, former Republican governor. Wow, I need some more coffee. Republican Attorney General of Wisconsin, and now he's running for Supreme Court. And yesterday, apparently, he was on the news shooting off. What is it about these people in my former party? They don't like the elderly, which I find odd. First, you had Eric Hovde, OC Eric Hovde out there in Orange County, who thought it'd be nice and fun to come back to Wisconsin and run for U.S. Senate with a mustache. And he starts carrying on how people in nursing homes are all incompetent and shouldn't vote.
He didn't say all. He just said most.
Most. And now this guy, Schimmel, he's shooting us a mouth off now, saying, again, that there's all this fraud and that people in nursing homes are incompetent, which I find fascinating. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Also going to talk about the difference between addresses to Congress, Donald Trump and Joe Biden, when it comes to standing up for Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare. Going to talk about the 80,000 cuts to the Veterans Affairs Department. Democrats also standing up for Ukraine. We're going to start close, and also more cuts coming apparently at Department of Education. That's the agency du jour of Donald Trump, going after the Department of Education. So we'll get to that a little bit as well. But I want to start here in Wisconsin with the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. We talked about this a little bit yesterday as we were coming on or going off the air, because this broke during our show yesterday, the Marquette Law School poll. And in Wisconsin, the Marquette Law School poll helped being run by our friend Charles Franklin, who's been a frequent guest on this program. You can't find a straighter shooter than Charles Franklin, a guy who's taught both at UW-Madison and Marquette, not a partisan guy. He's one of these guys who loves facts. He also loves a good whiskey or bourbon as well. But that's fantastic. Not while he's doing the poll, of course, but in his free time. And also, he's a connoisseur of coffee. Great guy, Charles Franklin. Anyway, they put out their latest poll. And Dan Bice at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel writes this up and says, about a month ahead of the April 1st election, a large percentage of Wisconsin voters still do not have an opinion about the two candidates running for the state Supreme Court, according to the new Marquette University Law School poll. The poll found that conservative Waukesha County Judge Brad Schimmel has been viewed favorably by 29% of registered voters and unfavorably by 32%. About 2 out of 5 said they had no opinion of him. In contrast, his opponent, liberal Dane County Judge Susan Crawford, was given favorable ratings by 19% of voters compared to 23% who viewed her unfavorably. Nearly 3 out of 5 said they did not know enough about her. So that means that more people know Brad Schimmel, not unexpected since he served as a statewide attorney general. So more people know him. He has a higher favorability, but also a higher unfavorability. Fewer people know Susan Crawford, but she has a lower favorable and lower unfavorable. Politicians trying to avoid having higher unfavorables than favorable percentages, Bice writes, a condition known as being underwater politically. The numbers show Schimmel was underwater by 3 percentage points, while Crawford was underwater by 4. Franklin said he chose not to do a head-to-head ranking, which respondents would say which candidate they preferred, because the high percentage of voters do not know either candidate. Another poll is not planned before the election, so we're not going to get a head-to-head. But Franklin's, this is Todd, my summarization here. Franklin basically saying, look, not enough people know these guys, so we're not going to do a head-to-head. Franklin said, quote, We didn't ask the horse race question, unquote. The poll surveyed 864 registered voters between February 19th and the 26th. The margin of error, plus or minus 4.6 percentage points. The poll found that 39% of respondents had heard a lot about the Supreme Court race, while 42% said they had some familiarity with the race. Nearly 1 in 5 said they had not heard anything about the contest. Now, that's the fact that we talked about this a little bit that really stuns me. You know, we focus on this stuff. We're constantly getting news, information, stuff like that. But the fact that nearly 1 in 5 people said they knew nothing about this race, 42% said only somewhat familiar with the race. What that tells me, not a sophisticated poll person, but just as a person who pays attention and used to run political campaigns, that tells me that people are checking out of the news. It reinforces in quantitative data what I've heard around the state of Wisconsin when I sit at bars in Hayward or coffee shops in Amory or at the Packers Pro Shop in Green Bay. And I bring up this show or civic media or any news, and they say, Todd, I just tune out. I get overwhelmed. I get anxiety. I don't know I can do anything about it. I'm not paying attention. And I'm like, but what about the consequences? And they're kind of like, yeah, I'll deal with it when it happens. So this poll basically is showing a lot of people feel that way. And look, who can blame them? Who can blame them? Back to this story here by Daniel Bice in the Journal Sentinel. Overall, a little more than a majority of registered voters said they had a clear view of Schimmel's position in the race, but 35% said they had not heard enough. For Crawford, 41% said they knew where she stood on issues, while 42% said they were unaware. Franklin said the voters' unfamiliarity with candidates will change as the election nears. Well, yes, I mean, just turn on the TV, right? I mean, that's just crazy. Other interesting details in this race, we're going to come back and talk about just a little bit more. And also hear this cut from Brad Schimmel. His thoughts on people in nursing homes. Astounding. Don't want to miss it. It's the Todd Allbaugh Show for a Thursday. We're here on the Civic Media Radio Network.
A new choice. Madison's Real News and Great Conversation, 92.7 WMDX.
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government by-in for the people. In a brief to the North Carolina Court of Appeals, a bipartisan group of former county election directors urged the court to reject a claim that as many as 65,000 voters were ineligible last November. And a former state Supreme Court justice is arguing in another appeals case that gerrymandering by the state legislature is akin to stuffing the ballot box. We followed the claims from state Supreme Court candidate Jefferson Griffin that as many as 65,000 registered eligible voters had incomplete registrations in a race he lost by 734 votes to incumbent Justice Allison Riggs. The race is the only unresolved election in the country. In late February, a bipartisan group of 42 former county election directors filed a brief outlining why the voters should be considered valid and concluding the citizens of North Carolina who obey the laws and the direction of the elections administrators should not have their votes discarded. In another North Carolina case, former state Supreme Court
Cassandra on
Justice
YouTube
Bob
says,
Orr
he didn't learn not to
arguing in
talk
state
crap about
appeals
nursing
court
homes
that
from
the
Eric Hovde?
legislature's
Nope, he did
gerrymandered
not
voting
learn a
districts
bit.
Apparently not,
manipulate
Cassandra.
election outcomes. By packing voters by party into a district, he argues, it violates the state constitution's guarantee of free elections with a fair count. Orr told the Charlotte News and Observer, if they can't stuff the ballot box, how can they stuff the voter pool? We have more on both cases at AmericanDemocracyMinute.org. I'm Brian Beal.
Looking to strengthen the bond with your
wherever it may lead, and having fun doing it. Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. 21 now past the hour of 12 noon on March 6th. It's a Thursday. Zommers on the board, talking a little bit more about this Marquette Law School poll that came out yesterday. Daniel Bice writes a column today in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel about it. A couple other interesting factoids here from this poll at Marquette. Nearly 80% of registered voters said that they prefer the court candidates discuss the issues during the race. That was true of both Republicans and Democrats. And where this comes from is that traditionally in Supreme Court races, and that's a whole other bottle of wine, cup of coffee, I still maintain in Wisconsin that the governor should appoint the Supreme Court justice and be confirmed by the Senate like they do at the national level for like a 15-year, 20-year period. But we don't do it that way. That's a whole other discussion. So we elect our Supreme Court justices. And so, in years past, it was tawdry. It was unseemly. It just wasn't done. If you were running for Supreme Court and they asked you about an issue, like abortion, voting, whatever, the response was always, well, that may come before me on the court, so I can't discuss that. So, Supreme Court debates were basically, I don't know. It was like, do you like the Constitution? Yes, I do.
Will you rule impartially? Of course.
Right. It was like watching paint dry, basically. And now, read more recently, conservatives and liberals running for the court have started to put their toe in the water of actually talking about issues. And 80% of voters said, we like that. We actually want to know how you stand on something before we vote for you. But back to this story, a strong majority said of voters that they don't like it, that the state Republican and Democratic parties are now contributing millions of dollars to the Supreme Court candidates. According to the poll, 61% of the public believes these donations reduce the independence of candidates. Well, that's a fact. And, of course, Elon Musk, his super PAC called America PAC, a grand total now reported spending up to $3.2 million on digital ads, texting, voter turnout in support of Brad Schimmel. Among those, ads that appear to be in support of Crawford, but actually attack her. So there's that. Meanwhile, Crawford is being helped by TV ads paid for a Better Wisconsin Together that attacks Schimmel. That group has reported spending $2.3 million. So it's happening. It's just that Elon's putting in about $1.5 million more so far. Spending expected to exceed $56 million in a race that will be decided on April 1st. No fooling. April 1st. There you go. Here's another interesting factoid in this Marquette Law School poll. That's kind of, I know our own Stuart J. Waddles, news director at WAUK Milwaukee, Waukesha. And this is one I think that folks need to pay attention to. In the poll yesterday, Marquette Law School, respondents said that the Republican Party is seen favorably by 47% of the general public and unfavorably by 52%. And you say, well, okay, more than half the people view the Republican Party unfavorably, but just barely. But then you look on the other side. The Democratic Party, according to this Marquette Law School poll, is viewed favorably by only 34% of the public and unfavorably by 62%. It ain't even close. And I think this was what has, in a larger context, this is what has a lot of folks concerned. That Democrats, the Democratic Party, have an image problem. They have a marketing problem. And more centrist folks are going to say, look, we have to as Brian Schatz said, the Democratic U.S. Senator from Hawaii, we have to start talking more like normal people and not spending so much time on the more fringe issues that don't poll well, by the way. In this Marquette Law School, for instance, on this voter ID thing, right? There's a constitutional referendum coming up in April, basically saying that show the U.S. Citizens vote. 77% of Wisconsinites support that. So
even though it's already the law, that doesn't matter.
Right. So here it is. The photo ID vote is favored by 77%, opposed by 22%. Marquette Law School poll says that a dozen polls since 2012, the lowest support for photo ID requirement was 63%, and that was back in 2014. When asked in August of 2021, 74% they favored photo ID. So if 77% of Wisconsin voters are in favor of something, even though if you really dig into the facts, you can understand why that's skewed. But if you have 77% of your electorate that is in support of something, why would you spend your time really pushing that one issue and putting it out there up front? It's no wonder that Democrats are way underwater on their perception. There are other issues in this poll, like Medicaid, which Wisconsinites are 100% for. Not 100%, but I mean, they're very much in for. Here's one. 64% of Wisconsin voters favor legal abortions in all or most cases. That's a good one. Medicaid, Wisconsinites support that. Education, Wisconsinites support that. So instead of Democrats putting these issues out there and leading on them that are vastly unpopular, they want to die on a hill and tilt at windmills. Now, on the far left side, I'm going to say far left. The progressive law, the really progressive wing of the party. Those folks are angry because they say that that's what Democrats should be standing for. And why aren't the Democrats taking bold steps to be brave and to push things through? And this is what's dividing the Democrats and making it very difficult for them to win elections. Also, raise money. We'll come back and tell you how bad after this. Take your phone calls as well. Stay tuned for Pam Yonke and the Farm Report. This is Todd Allbaugh on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Real news and great conversation.
Now, right now, Democrats just have the worst of both worlds, where they don't commit to either being normal and listening to people or being more progressive. And so they're just floundering and accomplishing nothing.
Yeah.
Wisconsin dairy is reeling after tariffs started knocking
Steve, I didn't call dismantling the Department of Education a fringe issue.
I'm Stephanie Huff, along with you on Thursday. You're listening
being
to
against voter ID a fringe issue, or at least an unpopular issue. And I'm,
Bryce Windecker joins us. He says it's not just the tariffs that could disrupt trade relationships. New Zealand's latest strategy to offset their increased milk production is to target some of our hot markets, like Japan.
New Zealand's milk production is up 5%. On a volume fluid basis, and now that China isn't buying as much powder because they just simply don't need it. Their economy is very sluggish and slow. We're seeing New Zealand make slightly more of their product into cheese instead of that powder now, and they're going to go after our Southeast Asian market. And our number two buyers of cheese would be Japan and South Korea. Number 2 and 3.
Bryce Windecker, along with us. He's a dairy analyst with Everegg and a dairy producer himself out of New York. He introduces us to some of the other moving parts in today's dairy markets aside from tariffs, including some competition in some of our hot markets. We'll be taking a look at what Class 3 fluid milk is doing after this.
Well, hold on to your britches, everybody. It's time to go nuts at the Springfield Corners Testicle Festival. March 8th, you can enjoy deep-fried delicacies along with ice-cold beverages and live music by the Lights Out Band.
I love this
Join
commercial.
me, the fabulous Farm Babe,
so
along with the rest of the Midwest Farm Report team at Springfield Corners for your chance to win concert tickets and to try some fried Rocky Mountain oysters. It all kicks off after 2 p.m. on March 8th. Springfield Corners. See Facebook for more details.
$1 billion. That's how much equipment is stolen from U.S. construction sites every year. These thieves are stalling projects, hurting Wisconsin's family-owned businesses, and driving up costs for everyone. Judge Brad Schimmel takes theft seriously. He holds criminals accountable and protects the people who are just trying to do their jobs. Call Judge Schimmel and thank him for protecting us. Paid for by the Associated Builders and Contractors of Wisconsin.
As we talked about earlier with Everegg's Bryce Windecker, dairy continues to take a hit in the market. The April Class 3 milk contract is down 10 cents at $17.24 a hundredweight, and the May contract is down 11 cents, trading at $17.63. Grain markets are seeing a pop midday on a Thursday. Cash corn up 13 1/4 at $4.69 a bushel. December new crop corn up a nickel and 3/4 at $4.52 1/2. Cash soybeans are trading up 20 cents at $10.31 3/4. November new crop beans up 13 1/4.
It's a real thing, Len. It's the testicle
and July
festival.
New crop wheat is up 10 1/2 cents at $5.72 1/2. For the Midwest Farm Report, I'm Stephanie Hoff.
Enjoying this local program? Find the complete Civic Media lineup at civicmedia.us or the Civic Media app.
Bright and beautiful today with high temperatures flirting with 40. Winds are a touch breezy out of the west and clouds will increase tonight with lows falling to the upper 20s. It'll be mostly cloudy tomorrow morning with more sunshine throughout the afternoon as highs stay stuck to the mid-30s. I'm meteorologist Brittany Merlot. Currently, it's 31 degrees.
At Chance Design Build, we provide remodeling done well with love. Our commitments extend beyond our workplace and your home to support our community. We judge people by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin, and we believe all humans deserve quality, publicly funded education, childcare, and health care. But what do you believe in? At Chance Design Build, we believe every person must have the opportunity to thrive. If you're thinking about remodeling your home, go to chancedesignbuild.com to learn more about our commitments to you, your home, and our community.
Matt Nair on air.
Will Westmoreland is joining us now. He is a farmer in southwestern Missouri.
This is an 80-20 Republican area down here. You can't throw a rock without hitting a Republican. And I still know all the guys I graduated with. So I always ask, don't admit you were wrong, just admit you were lied to. That's a lot easier to do. If you just admit you were lied to, you can get over here with us and start working to fight the problem.
Matt Nair on air.
I'm just an ordinary average guy. My friends all are boring, and so am I. We're just ordinary average guys.
Welcome back to the Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. A couple of average, ordinary guys, Allbaugh and Zommers. 34 minutes past the hour of 12 noon on Thursday, March 6th. That's pretty good.
Kind of a weird tune.
Yeah, but we're pretty ordinary. We're pretty average. We're average people. We don't try to put ourselves off as anything great shakes. We're just here to observe and offer a couple of comments based on experience. Talking about this article in the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel by Dan Bice and the Marquette Law School poll that came out showing that most people don't know enough about the Supreme Court candidates to have an opinion, which I find both fascinating but also confirming in the sense that as I've traveled the state, most people I've just said, look, I get depressed by the news. So it makes sense people kind of tune out until the last minute, like, oh, I guess I got to know something. And that's why we get all these gosh darn ads that drive us crazy.
I mean, that's kind of how I was before I started working here and realizing that, wait, I can actually, do something. And knowing this actually does help me and the people around me.
Yeah. Brad Schimmel, as we said, let's play this cut, Zommers. Schimmel, tell us who this program was on. Let's credit them so nobody thinks we're stealing
this. Was Vanessa Keldson on WMTV 15 News in Madison.
All right. Interviewing Brad Schimmel, the conservative candidate, and asking him about his position on the 2020 election, voting, and nursing homes.
So to clarify, do you think that there were any issues with voter fraud in 2020?
I saw the news reports that anybody saw, where we heard that year that there were people who were in nursing homes who had been incompetent, ruled incompetent for voting for years, who suddenly voted in that election. And we didn't have the special voting deputies in to the sworn voting deputies in to make sure that this is on the up and up. Absolutely, there is some fraud like that, sure.
Once again, and this is something, again, a narrative that Republicans try to use. Eric Hovde, OC, Orange County, Eric Hovde of beautiful Southern California tried to use this against Tammy Baldwin in the U.S. Senate race. Thankfully, it did not work. This narrative that people, once you go into a nursing home, assisted living, elder care, that you're incompetent. I know a lot of people that are in assisted living, in what you would be called nursing homes. They're wonderful, vibrant people well into their 90s who keep track of the news better than most of us and who vote. Maybe Brad Schimmel's fear is that folks in nursing homes are going to start paying attention to the news, which they already are, and find out that Republicans like Schimmel's old buddy Scott Walker and Donald Trump and Derek Van Orton and Glenn Grothman and Tom Tiffany and Scotty Fitzgerald, all those folks are in the process of cutting programs that people in nursing homes rely upon, like Medicaid and Medicare. Because all of this stuff that, not all of it, many of the things, and some of it that I talk about, and I'll admit that, because I think that it's important to address some of these big lies head on and give you the facts. But much of this stuff is to fog it up. A friend of mine sent me something this morning about the fog out there, and he's absolutely right. And what I'm trying to do is cut through the fog a little bit here and say, here's what really matters. And one of the things that's really going to matter quickly, coming up in a week or so, the government needs to pass, federal government, a continuing resolution or a bill to keep government funding, or the federal government will shut down in its entirety. And then there's the budget coming up, in which Republicans and Donald Trump and Elon Musk, in order to get the tax cuts that they say they need, the only way you could do that, simple, even a guy like me who's not great at math can understand this. The only way you can get to those $1 trillion tax cuts is by cutting entitlement programs such as Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare. So that's why Brad Schimmel is trying to say we got to be careful about these folks in nursing homes, because, you know, they might be angry and might actually vote. And remember, we just had that state audit that came out, the audit of the 2024 election, zero fraud. Well, zero fraud. There were 4 people, human counting things, that had the wrong 4. All the machines were correct. Let's play the cut quickly, and I'll get to the phones. 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. Hang on the lines a bit longer, folks. We're going to get to you. I just want to take us back a year. We just got done hearing President Trump give his presidential address. Let's go back 1 year to Joe Biden, President Joe Biden, standing in the same place. And he brought up Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
Many of my friends on the other side of the aisle want to put Social Security on the chopping block. If anyone here tries to cut Social Security, Medicare, or raise the retirement age, I will stop you. The working people who built this country pay more into Social Security than millionaires and billionaires do. It's not fair. We have 2 ways to go. Republicans can cut Social Security and give more tax breaks to the wealthy. That's the proposal. Oh, no. You guys don't want another $2 trillion tax cut? I kind of thought that's what your plan was. Well, that's good to hear.
See, that's how you do it. Doesn't it seem incredible that was a year ago?
Yeah, wow.
I mean, a year ago, that's where we were. A vibrant Joe Biden standing in the well of the U.S. House and getting Republicans in front of the nation to yell out and say, no, we don't want to cut Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare. He goaded them, Biden did. Because remember, Rick Scott of Florida actually had the plan. Biden said, come to my office. I got it. I got your plan. And he called him out and he said, your guys want to do this. And remember how Ron Johnson, he screamed like a scalded cat and ran for the hills? That's the way that you connect with voters. That's the way you do it. Joe Biden knew how to win elections. I'm not saying he should have been the nominee in 2024, but he knew how to reach across the aisle and get people in the middle and connect on real issues. 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842, where we start in Zombers. Start with Brian in McGuanago. Brian, thanks for calling in. What say you?
Hi, guys. I just wanted to chime in about something I had brought up with Mr. Earl Ingram a couple of months back, and that my frustration with the Democratic Party and everything that's going on and basically how we got to this point. And I had stated that I felt that the Democrats were, partially to blame for why we are here where we are, that be it messaging or just lack of action on certain policies.
Agreed.
But what I mentioned, what Mr. Zollmer asked me what I wanted to talk about, and I said voter apathy. Back when I was just turning 18 and I voted for Ross Perot because I thought it was a joke. And then I didn't vote for barely anything for the longest time. And then I started listening to civic media and I started getting a whole lot more involved. And I was voting in every single election I could. And now I can't say I feel any more apathetic than even when I was a kid. I feel more apathetic now than I did when I was younger.
Why is that?
And
I'm curious.
Well, part of it was because of what I saw the other night when Trump was giving his speech and the Democrats were holding up these paddles.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so disheartening. I've been calling the Democrats feckless for a while now, and I believe it to be so. When AOC was up for that, committee chair, and the powers that be didn't let her have, they gave it to some guy who's, got one foot in the grave. And, the Democratic machine got too used to all their corporate donations. They're just as guilty as a lot of the Republicans when it comes to, money in politics. And
let me ask you this. Let me ask you this because I'm up against the clock here. I want to get other people a chance. Quickly, if you can. Is my former boss, Scott Klug, used to ask me once in a while driving around. He said, if you ruled the world, and you don't, but if you ruled the world, Brian, what would you have the Democrats do to make you less apathetic, to excite you as a voter?
Do more than strongly worded letters and, always taking the high road because it's not working.
All right. I appreciate that.
That's all.
Stick around. I got a take on Al Green because I had an opinion yesterday and I wanted to play what he said yesterday. And as they say in Congress, revise and extend my remarks. 855-752-4842. Mark in Purtisac. Mark, thanks for holding on. What say you?
Yeah, I think, first you brought up for the voter ID thing, maybe what the Democrats need to do is pass something so they can say, guarantee people are able to access the way to get a voter ID and make it guarantee their right to vote because they actually have the proper identification that they need to vote. And for Brad Schimmel, we should say BS Brad Schimmel because we all know what BS means.
Yeah.
His initials match perfectly for that because he's never been anyone that's been less than full of that particular material.
Yeah, I think that the fact that he like Hovde, is saying that people in nursing homes should be questioned about their ability to vote. I think a lot of people will find that offensive.
And also, another thing to note, Brad Schimmel knows it's wrong. If you listen, I heard more of the interview last night on the news. And before that, he was speaking confidently. He's asked this question, and he's stumbling through the answer. Like, he knows that it's nonsense.
But he's playing to the base. And you look at the poll numbers, and you see why. This is going to be a very basey election. 855-752-4842. Wisco Paul. Wisco, always a pleasure. What say you?
Good afternoon, Todd. Hey, as far as Schimmel goes, he
She's not for fair maps. And one of the reasons you had so many downbeat Democrats is because the maps were gerrymandered. And you didn't even feel like if you lived in a lot of these districts you had a say, because you really didn't, because the Republicans picked their voters. So it's a lot fairer right now. So that's a step in the right direction. And you know, with Schimmel, you're not going to get fair maps. You're not going to get a fair shake on a lot of things because he's a Scott Walker boy.
Sure.
Also, on the national side of things here, if you don't think the Republicans are coming for Medicaid, I don't know about Medicare, but Medicaid, you're wrong. They're coming for that because they need that money to fund these tax cuts for the wealthy. And if you don't think they're going to do that, you're also wrong.
Right. Appreciate the call, Wesco. Thank you so much. Up against the clock here. Let's go quickly to WCFW in Eau Claire. Our friend Gene up there. Gene, if you can make it quick, 1 minute, please.
Yes, I'm calling to say outstanding job. Keep up the great work. Please keep playing from Schimmel's own voice the words that he has said previously, now, and ongoing. Thank you so much. Seriously, Todd, you're doing an outstanding job. Thank you.
Well,
Bye.
we appreciate you and all you folks make the show go. 855-752-4842. Ollie up the North Woods. Ollie, thanks for calling in. What say you?
Well, I just want to say that Schimmel's view of nursing homes is a crock. There are a lot of people who live in nursing homes. I worked in one for a while. My dad was also in one for a while towards the end of his life, and his cognitive abilities were A1. He only went in to the nursing home after a surgery, and there are a lot of people in nursing homes who are there for rehab or who are there because they just can't make it in their own homes. But that doesn't mean they're not smart enough to vote.
Right. No, I totally agree, Ollie. And as someone who has had grandparents use nursing homes, has spent a lot of time in them, worked with nursing home administrators, I find it one of the highest privileges that we could ever have, getting to care for someone in the twilight of their life. There's dignity there if we approach it that way. And the fact that Trump and Musk and Republican leaders are now looking at cutting Medicaid dollars and disenfranchising the elderly to give billionaires tax cuts, I find appalling. Stay tuned. Come on back. Todd revises and extends remarks. You don't want to miss it. It's the Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network.
For Madison, real news and great conversation. 92.7 WMDX.
Judge Brad Schimmel is an anti-choice politician whose positions are too extreme for Wisconsin women. He supports a pre-Civil War law that bans abortion. But don't take our word for it. Hear it in his own words.
The 1849 ban on abortions, which, by the way, what is flawed about that bill?
The 1849 abortion ban provides no exceptions for rape or incest.
What is flawed about that bill?
The 1849 law criminalizes doctors and their patients.
What is flawed about that bill?
Brad Schimmel supports an
tell what he's saying.
1849 law to ban abortion with no exceptions. Tell Brad Schimmel, extreme politics don't belong on Wisconsin's Supreme Court. Call 262-548-7548. That's 262-548-7548. Paid for by A Better Wisconsin Together, Incorporated.
I'm Dan Schaefer. Let's recombobulate. Governor Tony Evers has released his budget, calling this the most pro-kid budget in state history. This is now the fourth time that Evers has put forth a budget proposal, and the three prior were all met with a similar fate. Republicans in the legislature rejected it entirely. Again this year, Assembly Speaker Robin Vos called the budget dead on arrival. To a certain extent, this is what we've come to expect from this era of divided government in Wisconsin. In previous years, Evers has eventually signed Republican-authored budgets and used his line-item veto powers to make certain.
I'm half deaf, so tell me. Here's the volume for your headset. One here.
Got about 25 seconds.
All right, thank you. Gonna bring that over. get you on camera. There we go. Look at that. Look at that. Now we've got something, folks. Is that too loud for you?
No, it's all good.
All right.
All right, 15 seconds.
Thank you. Pursuing truth wherever it may lead and having fun doing it. Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. Zomer is on the board now, 9 before the hour of 1 o'clock at the top of the hour. ABC and CBS News coming up in hour number 2. Little what's worse for you, Oleo edition, butter or margarine. Very controversial. Not for me, but for some. Welcome back to the show. Great to have you along. Making an appearance, ladies and gentlemen, from beautiful WXCO Bull Falls Radio, our great station up there, one of the 2 hardest working men in Civic Media Company, Chad Holmes. How are you, my
Just
friend?
wandering the halls, wandering the streets here in Madison. I decided to stop by.
It's
No,
great.
I've never been at the world headquarters.
I cannot believe that. You've never been in this building?
I'd never into the last time I came, you were at the old building.
Oh, over on University Avenue.
Yeah.
We were doing the broadcast out of the back of a Panera. So that was interesting.
I know. This is much different.
Much better.
Cool.
Now, you host a great show every day from, did you do your show on the
I
drive?
did. Yep.
Wow, you made good time.
And I see one of my guests from this morning's show on your big
Well,
board.
yeah, I see that. I see it. We'll talk more about Chad. He and Phil Nee, because Chad and Phil, they have shows in the morning. They have talk shows. They do high school sports. And I appreciate you so much. But yeah, so we're talking a little bit about Brad Schimmel and the Supreme Court race. 855-752-4842. Nancy up in beautiful Wausau. Nancy, Chad Holmes is here in person. How serendipitous. How are you?
Hi, and hi again, Chad.
Yeah, I talked to her a couple hours ago.
What do you have for us?
Well, I just wanted to comment on this crap with Schimmel and with the Republicans and Medicaid. You know, I'm looking at, up here just north of me, 40% of the people in those nursing homes are on Medicaid.
Yeah.
You're going to take that away from you're crippling the Northwoods for one. You're crippling everybody in the state. And, we need to vote for Susan Crawford, okay? That's all I've got. Have a good time tonight, Chad. Bye.
Thanks, Nancy. And real quick, with Nancy, she's the chair of the Marathon County Democratic Party, and they had an event with Judge Crawford recently, and it really kind of crystallizes, I think, a lot of what is often right with our politics and our civics and what is wrong. Because I looked at, they had a packed house of 75 folks asking and getting questions answered by Judge Crawford. And then you have a man that will never step foot in this state, Elon Musk, putting in millions of dollars. Yeah. And again, I mean, and we were talking actually on the air this morning, I said, yes, the law has been made at this point. We may not like it, but that Elon Musk is able to put that money somehow into our elections. But the thing that kind of annoyed me, and I'm sure you saw it with Dan Bice's column about, trying to twist, make these so-called pro-Crawford messages, and they're really anti-Crawford. I mean, but I saw the pictures of the event with Judge Crawford in Wausau last week that Nancy had sent over. And it just said to me, everything I was right. These are people that go and knock on doors, the 75 people in that room talking to the judge and working at the real grassroots level. And it just feels like somehow we have to get to the point again where it's not how much money you can put into a campaign. And I know that there's a lot of levels to that, but it just made me feel good when I see 75 people in a room talking to a candidate who's willing to answer questions.
Yeah.
Right now, we don't see as much of that with some of the lack of town halls and the like. But again, I have to admit, I have not been in a good space for a number of months now, to be honest with you. But when you see something like that, and you see something like that, it makes you feel good that these people really do want to do it the right way.
We have a resident doctor here on the show, Dr. Robert from Richland Center, listening to WRCE. This is great info. It says, legally, speaking of Schimmel coming out and saying he has concerns about people in nursing homes voting, saying legally you have the right to vote unless it is removed by a court. So activating a healthcare power of attorney does not remove the ability to vote. Guardianship medical forms include a question whether the physician or psychiatrist feels the person can maintain the ability to vote. So even people under guardianship may retain the ability to vote depending on how the judge rules. So if a person in a nursing home states they want to vote, the staff in the facility are obligated to help them unless they have a guardianship prohibiting them from voting. Great information.
I was listening to on my drive here, and when you were talking about Brad Schimmel and older Wisconsinites, my first thought is, did he hire Eric Hovde as his campaign manager?
Right.
I mean, it sounds like this from the same playbook, and it didn't work.
I believe he's growing a mustache now, Schimmel is. 855-752-4842. Let's go quickly to Tim in Whitewater. Tim, if you can be brief, please, go ahead.
Yeah, the other aspect of this is there are a lot of people, it isn't just the voting, there are a lot of people who put their homes in a trust at the behest of lawyers, which creates problems for, and I worked in a setting like this, then when you try to get people in there, the lawyer's got the money, the family's in the home is in a trust, the kids get the money, and then the rest of us in society get left picking up the tab for someone in a nursing home. So it's nothing to do with the voting aspect, but it's a real aspect of it.
Yeah.
There is some of this as a result of, and I saw it too, the facility has to be careful too. We have seen cases where, somebody's daughter comes in, they're well intended, but they're going around and trying to get a good facility will work with people on allowing them to vote if they are competent.
Right.
If the facility isn't on its toes, you can have somebody come in and help, walk through the building and get people to vote even when they're not competent or
right.
So
Tim, I'm up against the clock. I want to get Cindy in quickly. Cindy, Appleton, 30 seconds. What do you got?
Well, I met a friend of yours last night at Adam Kissinger's
Who's that?
speech up in Green Bay. Chrissy Lyer?
Oh, Dr. Lyerly. Yes, of course. Absolutely.
No,
our old friend Kristen Bry. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's Kristen Bry. That's it. Yep. She was up there.
She's
and
fantastic.
I just want to say that, as Adam Kissinger is no longer Republican either. He has come from the dark side over to the other side.
Appreciate it, Cindy. Chad Holmes, thanks so much. Catch Chad every day on WXTO from 8 until 10. Have a great call down here.
Thank you.
Back after this.
Real news and great conversation. 92.7 WMDX. Jane Matnair and Greg Bach.
Coming up on the show, Recombobulating with Dan Schaefer. That is coming your way. Also, Pete Schwaba from Nightlight will join us to talk about the killer flaw in that movie Green and Gold. Don't miss it.
Matnair on air. Weekday mornings at 11. Nightlight with Pete Schwaba.
I'm very excited. It is my pleasure to welcome tonight my old pal, Dr. Kristen Lyerly. I told the entire listening audience that I rub my feet together sometime when I watch TV, and I called it self-cuddling. And it's like the only thing we do where we rub our own bodies when we relax,
Is it? Are you calling that to a gynecologist? Pete, come on.
Nightlight with Pete Schwaba. Weeknights from 6 till 8 on your local Civic Media radio station and on the Civic Media app. This is your local Civic Media radio station. Want to hear even more? Anytime? Find all of it at civicmedia.us. This is 92.7 WMDX Columbus, Madison's home for real news and great conversation. A Civic Media station.
ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. Tariff troubles dragging on stocks again despite President Trump's latest one-month exemption on some Mexican goods, along with yesterday's 30-day reprieve for car imports. Those companies participating in the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade deal. Businesses also, including farmers, say they're dealing with thin cost margins too. Jack Vesey is a produce grower in California.
Any type of tariff or trade war, there's winners and losers. There's certain things that might be a positive for us. There may be some things that might be negatives. Concern on fertilizer price and some of our inputs. If those increase, that's going to put a damper on things. That's going to increase our costs.
The White House Special Envoy Steve Witkoff says President Trump's call with Hamas leaders centering on the release of all hostages. Hamas earlier had rejected the demand until they say the second phase of the ceasefire deal goes into effect. The Vatican says Pope Francis had a restful night of sleep as he continues to battle pneumonia. This is ABC News.
Local radio for you and your community. It's Civic Media's mission with stations across Wisconsin. Find your favorites at civicmedia.us.
For 92.7 WMDX News, I'm Savannah Tomei Olson. We're getting a look at how Wisconsinites feel about Donald Trump's first 2 months in office. Marquette University Law School released their latest poll. Trump's approval rating sits at 48% approve to 51% disapprove among Wisconsin voters right now. That's slightly higher than when Trump first occupied the White House 8 years ago. In the March 2017 poll, Trump's approval was at 41%, 7 points lower than it is right now. In this year's poll, Trump's support is worse with independents, where he polled with net positive ratings in 2017, but net negative ratings now. Charles Franklin, poll director.
It's a good name to say.
Coalitions are split the way the parties are aligned, especially the way independents are. Is a little different this
doesn't
time.
quite work the same because the R gets mixed in, so it's Todd or Allbaugh.
The data shows voters have a more negative view of Elon Musk, who has a 41%.
I'll be sure we'll chat a little bit. Then we'll do the Al Green thing, and then we'll do
Musk fares even worse, with 29% viewing him unfavorably. And continuing a story we've watched play out across our area, Monroe will not remove fluoride from its water supply. We've been seeing more communities start to talk about whether to
Elon
remove
Musk
the mineral from municipal water.
on Joe Rogan said, quote, "The fundamental weakness of Western civilization is empathy," unquote. That explains a lot.
Monroe's Common Council voted
shows that, in fact, he does know what he's doing, and he's proud of it.
The mayor vetoed it, saying the health benefits are just too big. Fluoridating water has been shown to reduce tooth loss by 40 to 60%. And Madison College is one step closer to finding its next president. Back in October, they had to restart the search process after one candidate dropped out. They've now narrowed it down to 4 people, and the Madison College Board of Trustees will select their candidate next month. I'm Savannah Tomei Olson. This is 92.7 WMDX News.
The Bucks down the Mavericks. I'm Mike Clemens with sports. The Bucks cruise to another win at home, 137-107, past the Dallas Mavericks team missing 7 other players. How did the Bucks handle themselves? Doc Rivers.
Yeah, I thought we played the right way overall. Aggressive, moved the ball, defended. I mean, they have so many guys out. You know, tough for them. Like, that's how I kept thinking that. Like, yeah, you got Klay Thompson over there, and so it's just a tough spot.
College hoops, the Badgers with a win in Minnesota, 74-67. John Blackwell led with 25 points and a career-high 11 rebounds. Marquette losing at UConn, 72-66. The game delayed for 22 minutes at the start.
Is not going to be happy. It's a leak in the roof.
About what?
And it was leaking on the baseline.
Marquette's lost like 4 in a row.
If it didn't get addressed. So, I told Danny we'd go across the street to the practice gym if we had to, but I'm glad we could play the game here.
That's Marquette head coach Shaka Smart with Sports on Mike Clemens.
Your news, conversations, and a whole lot of fun. It's all on your local Civic Media radio station or the Civic Media
And
app.
Mark Pocan and Derek Van Orden's Twitter
Bright and
feud is
beautiful today with high
Heating up.
temperatures flirting
Yeah.
with 40. Winds are a touch breezy out of the
I think
west
we'll
and clouds
give
will increase
that the
tonight
time
with
it's
lows
originally
falling to upper
deserves.
20s.
That
It'll be
should about
mostly
do it.
cloudy
Yeah,
tomorrow
that's-
morning.
Greg Gumbel,
Full sunshine
CBS
throughout the
Sports.
afternoon as highs stay stuck to the mid-30s. I'm meteorologist Brittany Merlot. Currently, it's 32 degrees.
The Maggie Dawn Show.
Brian Lamack, defend the vote.
The SAVE Act will make it harder for all Americans to vote. Now you need a passport. Wisconsin specific, 5 million people don't have a passport. Now it's $130 per passport.
Even if you can afford to get a passport, that is a months-long process. Unless you planned a year ahead, you're not going to be able to vote.
The Maggie Dawn Show. Weekdays from 2 till 4 on your local Civic Media radio station and on the Civic Media app.
today on
At
Twitter
National
at work,
Geographic Society,
instead of
we believe
being
in the power of
recommended
wonder. It
sex
drives us to
toys,
explore,
Yes.
pushes
I'm
us
being
to see
recommended
the world
Cheech and
differently,
Chong's
moves us to
THC
action.
seltzer.
And we believe
Oh,
that
well,
today,
there you go.
wonder is more
Maybe,
essential
maybe
than
we
ever.
should have you
That's why
imbibe
we're
that
supporting
during
a
the
new
show
generation
and
of
see how,
dreamers
and see how that
to
goes.
ask big
On my
questions,
personal,
make
on my
breakthroughs,
phone, the
and
only
bring
apps I've been
future
getting for the
closer.
last week,
Wonder
or
awaits.
apps, the only
Will you
ads I've been
join
getting
us?
for the last week
Visit
are for portable breast pumps.
natgeo.org/wonder.
And I think Google has made some assumptions about me that are false.
On the next nightlight, making the
And with that, we have
popcorn
about
pick of the
15
week
seconds.
will be Civic
All right,
Media's
thank you.
own.
Live from the Civic Media World Headquarters in Madison, Wisconsin, it's the Todd Allbaugh Show. And now, pursuing truth wherever it may lead, here's your host, Todd Allbaugh.
Across Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network and streaming worldwide on the Civic Media app. Good afternoon, everybody. Todd Allbaugh, along with our producer and engineer, the outstanding Mr. Aaron Zommers, on the board. It is 6 past the hour of 1 o'clock. Welcome into hour number 2 of the big program here on this Thursday, March 6th, 2025. It is a great day to be a Wisconsinite. Sunny skies and a cloud in the sky that I can see out of the world headquarters here in downtown Madison on State Street. Great to have you along. How about Chad Holmes stopping by, Zommers? Now, there's a guy who's getting it done day in and day out, just like our friend Phil Nee at WRCO. Holmes up there at WXCO in Wausau. He's getting up before the chickens get up. He's doing a show. He's doing a couple of hours of a radio show. And then he's going out at night and broadcasting hockey and baseball. And the list goes on. And he's down here now broadcasting state high school hockey.
Yeah, those two work so hard,
right,
and deserve praise. And it's always good to hear his takes, and I'm glad that he got to come on coincidentally when somebody from Wausau called in.
That exactly. It just shows you how we're all kind of connected. And good luck to all those Wisconsin high school hockey teams, boys and girls, who are participating here in Madison this weekend. It is serious stuff, these hockey's state tournaments. So big kudos to all of them. You can listen to those broadcasts, by the way, if you don't live in Wausau, via the Civic Media app. Simply download it at your Apple or Android device. Type in Civic on the old search bar in your app store, Civic, C-I-V-I-C, Media. It'll pop up. Takes less than a minute to download. It's free, gratis, won't cost you a dime. It's what Gail King over there at CBS calls a deal. The Civic Media app. Listen to Chad tonight on the Civic Media app. Lots to get to this hour, including our what's worse on butter or margarine. That'll be fun. I don't think it'll be close, but maybe
I don't think so.
Maybe people feel differently than me. I don't know. Going to talk more about these cuts. Yesterday being announced at Department of Veterans Affairs, 80,000 employees. And now today, word is that Trump is going to effectively shut down the U.S. Department of Education. Which is ironic, for me at least, that it happens today, because today, the 6th of March, would have been my maternal grandmother, Marge Wallace, would have been her 104th birthday. She died at the ripe old age of 96. And before the show, I thought to myself, if I had said to my grandmother in her 90s, well, just think, Grandma, in 2025, you'll be 104. Her reaction most likely would have been, oh, I hope not. I hope I'm not around. Because, I mean, she worked her tail off, literally building a university and helping others and being an educator. She grew up as a farm girl, and in her 90s, she was in a lot of pain, just her bones and everything. And
as happens to a lot of people.
And she would say, I don't want to live to be 100. And she didn't. She checked out at 96. And by the way, she lived the last 8-ish years in a nursing home and had all of her faculties up until the day she died. And by golly, she voted. So she was the first woman to serve as a dean of a University of Wisconsin campus at UW-Richland, with so many other people there in the Richland Center area, helped to establish that. And it survived for over 50 years. Until Jay Rothman took over the UW system, and the Republicans defunded it, and Tony Evers said, I care, but not enough to do anything about it. That's going to be a new segment. I care, but not enough to do anything about it.
You know, Jay Rothman and those guys, they're doing the best they can.
Right. So anyway, happy birthday, Grandma. I know you're looking down. Thanks for all you did. Your legacy lives on in so many lives that you helped. I still have people come up to me and say, if it wasn't for your grandmother, I would have never got my education. I wouldn't have my job. It just goes to prove the ripple effect of one person on other people's lives. So there you go. Speaking of that, ripple effects, I want to begin this hour. And then it was great to have Chad in here, but we didn't get to. I want to revise and extend some remarks that I made yesterday. about the joint session of Congress, the presidential speech. Trump was there. And Congressman Al Green, I believe of Texas, Democrat, stood up and was shouting at Donald Trump as he was trying to give the speech. And Mike Johnson, the speaker, gave him a warning, pounded the gavel, said, "You're out of order. If you don't stop, we'll have you removed." And Green continued. And so they called the sergeant at arms and had Al Green removed. I said yesterday that while I don't agree with Johnson on much, I agreed that was appropriate because he wouldn't stop. And people say, well, why isn't it okay for Marjorie Taylor Greene and others to yell liar at Joe Biden, but not? And I said, well, I know it's nuanced, but they stopped. They didn't continue on. Al Green did. And look, I'm 55. I'm an institutional guy. I worked for both the United States House of Representatives and the state Senate. I have seen firsthand that normally the most effective way to get something accomplished in these institutions is to have rules that everybody has to follow. And so I just said, look, I think what Green said was important, that Trump doesn't have a mandate to cut Medicaid, but I don't think he did it the right way. Al Green took to the House floor yesterday, and I listened to it. I saw it on Twitter, actually. And I listened to it, and I thought to myself, would I have listened to that if he hadn't been thrown out? If he just went to the House floor and said something, would I have stopped and clicked and listened to that? Let's listen to it, then we'll discuss. Here's Al Green yesterday on the House Representatives floor.
And I did it with intentionality. The president indicated that he had a mandate. I said to the president, you do not have a mandate to cut Medicaid. I have constituents who need Medicaid. They will suffer and some will die if they don't get Medicaid. I heard the speaker when he said that I should cease. I did not, and I did not with intentionality. It was not done out of a burst of emotion. I was emotional about it, but I did it with intentionality. I think that on some questions of conscience, you have to be willing to suffer the consequences. And I have said I will. I will suffer whatever the consequences are, because I don't believe that in the richest country in the world, people should be without good health care. I stood up for my constituents then. I'm standing up for my constituents now. I am grateful to Mr. McGovern for what he has said. I'm grateful to those who have been standing with me. But I will tell you, I appreciate you. No anger. The officers who escorted me out, they were kind to me. I don't blame the speaker for anything. Friends, I would do it again. I have to be candid with you. I'm not trying to in some way insult you. This is a matter of principle. This is a matter of conscience. There are people suffering in this country because they don't have health care. I'll close with this. On some issues that are matters of conscience, it is better to stand alone than not stand at all. This is where I stand.
Democratic U.S. Representative Al Green of Texas. So I listened to that. And I thought, would I have stopped on Twitter and listened if Al Green hadn't been thrown out? And if I'm honest with myself, no, I wouldn't have. I thought he was exquisite in that explanation. I thought he was, I guess the only word is exquisite. It reminds me of the great late civil rights activist John Lewis, who reminded all of us that sometimes it's good to have good trouble. And I think Al Green got into some good trouble. And while I still don't think that we should become Parliament in the UK with prime ministers' questions and yelling at one another, I think Al Green made his point. And the fact that he accepted the responsibility and said, look, I know whatever punishment's coming my way, I'll take it. Didn't make excuses for it. Took responsibility. But he made a really important point. And it was a way to cut through in a time when it's very tough to cut through message-wise. So that's my second pause, reflect take on Al Green. I think he did what he needed, what he thought he had to do. He made a point, and by the way, it's a very salient one. Because those of us, sometimes including myself, are not paying attention to what really matters, and what really matters are these votes coming up in Congress soon, which are going to determine Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, lives, actual lives of a lot of folks. 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. L.A. Tom out in beautiful Los Angeles, California. L.A., what do you have?
First off, Al Green is a hero of mine now. And also, you know what? People act like the only people that are on Medicaid and Social Security and Medicare are Democrats.
Right.
I mean, there's a hell of a lot of Republicans out there that are on Medicare, Medicaid, and
in red congressional districts.
Social Security, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I would think that even Republicans would be saying, you know, thank you, Al Green, for speaking out for me. It wasn't like a you lie thing where it was just basically just trying to make a headline. He had a purpose behind what it was he was trying to say. And like you said, Todd, he got that out. Now, I'd like to say that money in politics and lobbyists in politics is what is destroying our country. Because of Citizens United, this has destroyed our country. If we didn't have Citizens United, we wouldn't be having millions of dollars going into a campaign in Wisconsin right now, Susan Crawford and BS. I mean, we would have basically people running for office. And for the gentleman that called before, look, it was the Republican sandbox. We're just playing in it now.
Right.
We are not.
Hang on, just don't. Before we're out of time, you put something in the chat. I want to address it. You said the 10 Democrats who voted for the censure of Al Green today. I don't know this for a fact. My guess is if you look, they're Democrats who are in swing districts who barely won the races and are being attacked by conservative media in their district. And so this is a way to try to balance it out politically. They're trying to survive. That's my guess. Appreciate the call, LA. Come on back. We'll play a little What's Worse. It's the Todd Allbaugh Show. It's March 6th. It's Grandma's birthday. And this is the Civic Media Radio Network.
Real news and great conversation. 92.7 WMDX.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss.
Thank you, LA. She's in heaven now, but I'm sure she's doing well. 104. Be 104 today.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Didn't mean to cut you off, LA, but I want to make sure I got that out there just because I truly think that my guess is the 11 that voted for are people that won like in recounts by 100 or whatever, 1,000 votes, and they're getting beat the hell out of them for all this stuff that they're I'm not going to go into it on the air, but all this stuff about, well, you didn't stand for the kid with cancer, and so they're getting beat the hell out of them on that. And so this is a way to somewhat even it out and say, look, I stood up for decorum and I voted for the censure for Al Green. That's just a guess, but I bet if you look at where they're from, that's why.
This St. Patty's Day, remember the story of Lenny the Leprechaun. Lenny moved to
Lenny
Madison
the
searching for a
Leprechaun.
place to live.
If I find the right place, I'll find me pot of gold.
So he went online and searched up movetomadison.com.
Ooh, what riches!
Yes, Lenny, riches indeed. People that sell with the Aaron Weber Group get the best price with updated market reports and instant property value quotes. Virtual
commercial.
or in-person meetings, too. Find your pot of gold when selling with the Aaron Weber Group, powered by Compass.
I wonder how many years the Aaron Weber Group has been running.
A long time.
Oh, we're back to taking turns?
Yes.
Well, how about Sugar River Pizza?
Megan says coincidentally also my husband Corey's 30th birthday. Well, Corey, thank you for listening. God love you.
And they have that great kids.
March 6th is a great date to have a birthday. River if they lead and having fun doing it. Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. 21 now past the hour of 1 o'clock. Birthday wishes. I mentioned before the show, it would have been my grandma Wallace's 104th birthday. She departed. She checked out at 96. She's happy in heaven, I'm sure. Megan, one of our great folks here in the office in Madison, says, coincidentally, it's also my husband Corey's 30th birthday today. He loves listening to you guys while he's at work. Well, happy birthday, Corey, big 3-0. Just a young buck out there in the woods. So thanks for listening. And this brings up an interesting point. I'm thinking maybe for the summer, we start having people send in birthday wishes. I'm a big fan of Garrison Keillor and the old Prairie Home Companion show on National Public Radio, came out in Minnesota. And for very many years, during one part of the show, they'd play music, instrumental, and he would read birthday wishes from people in the audience or people, the listeners would call in, and send out birthday. I think that'd be lovely for us. And timely indeed, as Mike Lucas likes to say, because we just bought Civic, believe me, I couldn't buy a raincoat. But the Civic Media just bought a brand new station, well, a legacy station in northern Minnesota. And when I say northern Minnesota, I mean, like, to paraphrase Sarah Palin, I can see Canada from my back porch. You really can. WLEY. End of the road radio.
Is it ELY?
Or ELY, yeah, Eli, Minnesota. Sorry, the old dyslexia kicking in. WELY in Eli, Minnesota, and this is like right near the border of Canada, and they broadcast to the boundary waters up there. And because their signal goes into the boundary waters, it may be one of the few, if not only, signals up there. They are licensed by the FCC to carry emergency announcements. Now, for those of you like me who are big fans of broadcasting and the old and current CBS Sunday morning show that was originated and hosted so very many years by the late great broadcaster Charles Kuralt, who did the On the Road programs and whatnot. Well, he did a couple of stories on Eli, and he fell in love with it. So much so that when he retired from broadcasting in 1995, the station up there, WELY, was falling on hard times, and he bought it. And he ran it. Charles Kuralt, WELY in Eli, Minnesota, until his untimely death in 1997, and then it was sold and has fallen into kind of disrepair and been shut down a couple of times. Well, now Civic Media has bought it and has breathed life into it. We have some Craig the Trader, I think he's called up there. Trader Craig, one of the local personalities, is back on the air. And I think this is great because now through Civic, we can broadcast these things to the boundary waters. So I think we pick up on that. I think Charles Kuralt would love this and Garrison Keillor, and we just read people's birthdays this summer. So maybe that'll be a thing later on this summer. But cannot wait. I know it's going to be local music up there on WELY. Might be an AM signal coming up there as well. I'm not sure if we're going to, I have a feeling the people of Eli, Minnesota may not want me on their airwaves every day because, I'm a little harsh on the Gophers over there.
I will say though, Phil in Minneapolis just called in and says it is pronounced Ely.
Oh, really?
Eli.
Well, see, immediately, that's another reason the people in Ely don't want me there is because I can't pronounce their town name. Who wants this Wisconsin boy on our airwaves?
Mark in Prairie du Sac also texted in with that pronunciation.
Well, I appreciate that. That's the by the way, it's the first correct pronunciation I've heard. Ely, Minnesota. Well, thank you.
The more you know.
The more you know. And they're lovely, lovely people up there in northern Minnesota. I mean, it's not Iowa.
Watch yourself before we no.
I don't think we're gonna buy any stations in Iowa, but you never know. And look, we're all from the Midwest, right? We're just getting along. Thank you, Mark. Thank you for the caller. So congratulations to all the folks in Ely, Minnesota, who are now part of the Civic Media family. All right, we're going to start this now. We'll finish on the other side. Time once again, 26 past. A little what's words. Here we go.
This or that, this or that. Then, of course, the choice is yours. You can get with this or you can get with that. You can get with
Time once again for what's worse. Nothing to give away. No grand prizes, but it's coming. It's coming. And I cannot tell you. I'm not allowed. They're very strict about this, by the way. I cannot tell you what it is. But the grand prize coming up here soon, our text to win contest, it's something you can share. It's something you can share.
Something you can use every day.
Every day. And something so much fun.
Something you can use every night.
Every night. And if you have one and it's a good one, you'll never go back. The grand prize coming up in our text to win coverage or contest. You're not going to want to miss it. But we have nothing. This is just your chance to have your voice heard across civic media. All right, here we go. Timely indeed, because Easter is on. We're now into Lent, Mr. Zommers. Are you giving anything up for Lent?
Probably not.
All right.
Well, I guess I would have had to know already by now. So I guess the answer is no.
I traditionally, for Lent, I give up abstinence.
How's that working out for you this year?
Somebody has to do it. I've given up abstinence for Lent. So there you go. By the way, I'm going to be on Pete Schwaba's show tonight.
Are you going to talk about that
maybe,
in more detail?
I might, if he asks. So it'll be a good time to have by all. Join us tonight, 6:30 on Pete Schwaba's show, Nightlight with Conrad. Going to be talking TV, movies. I'm not sure. Abstinence. They were asking last night, what do you give up for Lent? I thought I'd save it for tonight. Anyway, what's worse, butter or margarine? Butter or margarine? 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. What's worse, butter or margarine? Our ongoing contributor and friend Jeff Perry on Facebook says, based on your tease, I can only assume the grand prize in the text to win contest coming up is related to the Testicle Festival. No, it is not. But wouldn't that be fantastic if it was? For those that don't listen to us on WMDX in Madison, well, I guess a lot of people hear Pam Yonke, Midwest Farm Report. Later this week, she's going to be broadcasting from the Testicle Festival. This is a real thing here in Dane County where they have all kinds of Rocky Mountain oysters, deep fried, all that kind of stuff. What would you put on your Testicle Festival Rocky Mountain oyster? Butter or margarine? What's worse? 855-752-4842. Come on back. It's the Allbaugh Show on Civic Media.
That ended a few seconds early because I forgot to count down the delay. So I was timing it to end 3 seconds early so that it would sound right on the radio.
No worries.
And follow Civic Media on Facebook, X, and Instagram.
For 92.7 WMDX News, I'm Savannah Tomei Olson. Well, we didn't get a ton of accumulation during that snow yesterday, but man, it was really coming down at some points. The U.S. Postal Service is asking you to make sure it's safe for your letter carrier to deliver the mail. They sent out a reminder saying anywhere a mail carrier has to walk should be clear of snow and ice. And pay special attention to steps and to overhangs. Make sure there aren't icicles that could fall on someone. And if you saw a fight at a bar Saturday night in the town of Blooming Grove, the Dane County Sheriff's Office may want to talk to you. Deputies say there was a fight at Jerry's place that night, and the men involved took it outside. During that fight, they say one man stabbed another with a box cutter, and authorities only learned about the incident when the man who was hurt showed up at the hospital. Now his injuries are life-threatening. LaRon Smith Brookins was arrested for reckless injury, but the Dane County Sheriff's Office is asking for more witnesses. So if you were there, call the Sheriff's Office. And in Milwaukee
LA Tom, no, I think before we've addressed this, and I think you can play even if you're out of state.
Has more.
The Milwaukee Health Department recently found lead after testing in 4
I'll shoot a message to Jenna, the person who has been more in charge of those.
The official rules person.
So we can get more clarity on this because it was a little confusing last time.
Say they're working together to address the lead hazards.
Earlier this year, Governor Tony Evers lowered the threshold for lead poisoning.
These are some great comments. I love each and every one of them.
I will say the product I use for shaving is called butter.
Really?
Oh, very good. 3.5 micrograms.
It's not, I'm not just rubbing a stick of butter on my skin.
To recommendations from the CDC. It means more children exposed to lead will be eligible for services. The governor's budget proposal includes more than $145 million that would go toward PFAS and lead abatement across Wisconsin. No amount of lead is considered safe for children. I'm Savannah Tomei Olsen, and this is 92.7 WMDX News.
On your entertainment beat, I'm Pete Schwaba. If you're heading to the theater this weekend while the snow melts, here are some moving pictures you might enjoy, especially if you're into sci-fi. Opening in wide release is Mickey 17. It's being called a sci-fi, comedy, drama, mystery, thriller. It covers a lot of bases. I think the only genre they're missing is adult film. The movie stars Robert Pattinson, who plays an expendable on a dangerous mission to colonize a planet covered with ice. The film is getting mad love from critics with an 87% and certified fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Another new sci-fi film that hits theaters, In the Lost Lands, stars Mila Jovovich and David Bautista. The film is about a queen who sends a sorceress into forbidden lands to find magical powers, kind of a necessity in the sorcery game. It's a nice cast and sounds fun, but is batting about a 50% with just a handful of reviews in. If science fiction isn't your thing, there are still lots of leftovers in the theaters from the last couple weeks, and most Oscar films are available to stream. For more showbiz fun, tune in to Nightlight with me, Pete Schwaba, weeknights from 6 to 8 p.m. on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Enjoying this local program? Find the complete Civic Media lineup at civicmedia.us or the Civic Media app.
Bright and beautiful today with high temperatures flirting with 40. Winds are a touch breezy out of the west and clouds will increase tonight with lows falling to the upper 20s. It'll be mostly cloudy tomorrow morning with more sunshine throughout the afternoon as highs stay stuck to the mid-30s. I'm meteorologist Brittany Merlot. Right now it's 34 degrees.
My part-time service in the Army National Guard makes it possible for me to be more for the community I call home. My training helps me at work when I lead by example. My service in the Army National Guard allows me to keep my community and those I care about safe from threats. Learn more about how you too can live and serve part-time close to home by visiting NationalGuard.com.
Sponsored by the Wisconsin Army National Guard, aired by the Wisconsin Broadcasters Association and this station.
The John and Gordy Show.
We're here with Mike McCabe. We are. Mike, the town halls, the reaction that the Republicans are getting in their own districts. It's kind of shocking, refreshing, by the way. I'm glad that other people are feeling a little bit frustrated like we feel. What do you think about all of the reactions?
Welcome back to the Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. 34 minutes now past the hour of 1 o'clock. Glad to have you along here right in the middle of our What's Worse question of the day. Your chance to have your voice heard across Civic Media. 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. Glad to have you along. You can also text us on the Civic Media app. Download the app for free at your Apple or Android device. Give us a text in. What's worse, butter or margarine? Butter or margarine? 855-752-4842. Now, this is, by the way, more clarification. We were talking about our new station over in Minnesota. It's pronounced Ely, Minnesota, and it's W-E-L-Y. And someone asked, well, if it's over on the other side of the Mississippi, wouldn't it begin with K? Usually stations west of the Mississippi are K. I don't know the full story. All I can tell you is that the original station signed on October 2nd, 1954 as WELY-AM. On the FM side, it was originally called KQEQ. As it was issued of the license in 1992, but then later on changed to WELY-FM. So for whatever reason, it's known as WELY. All right, Zalmer, let's get on this. Let's reach out to Trader Craig up there at WELY and get him on the show. We can ask Trader Craig. This will be fantastic.
That would be great.
Right? We're gonna have so much fun with this new station in Minnesota up there in the beautiful Boundary Waters. Right now, what's worse, butter or margarine? Butter or margarine? All right. MT in the Grove, better known as Monona Grove, says margarine is worse. It's like spreading warm plastic, and I refuse to spread neither on my testicles.
Probably a good move.
Because we were talking about this testicle festival. It's a real thing in Rocky Mountain Oysters here in Dane County. The Pam Yankee on the Farm Report is, it's a big business.
It is. And speaking of the Testicle Festival, for those of you not listening to WMDX in Madison, the John and Gordy Show is a morning show we have here. And this is their promo for tomorrow's show.
All right, here we go.
John Peterson and Gordy Young.
On our next show, Pam Yankee will be talking about the Springfield Corners Testicle Festival.
If you're unfamiliar with what a testicle is...
Wait, no, don't go there.
The John and Gordy Show, weekday mornings 6 till 8.
There you go.
I know, I thought that was hilarious.
You tune in tomorrow from 6 to 8 and you can learn more. Matt, one of our UPS drivers in Richland Center, listening on WRCE, the old home station. Margarine is worse. Butter is superior for cooking, shaving, and sunbathing.
Now, right.
This, and another person sent in, this reminds me of that old Seinfeld article where Kramer decides to use butter as moisturizer and suntan lotion. And
yeah, that's not a good move.
Not a good move. Not a good move. Tony, listening on WMDX in Beaver Dam. It's Wisconsin butter that goes on everything, so margarine is worse. Absolutely. Michael, listening in Tosa on WMDX, says butter is best, margarine is the worst. Kimber, listening in Muscatine on WRCE, saying margarine worst of all every day and half the night. Only real butter forever. 855-752-4842. One more here from RCE. Our other UPS driver, Sean in the RC, says butter is better, especially when it's from Alcam Creamery in Richland Center. They do it great. All sorts of great local butter in Wisconsin, right? All right, let's go to Ollie in the North Woods calling back. Ollie, butter or margarine, what's worse?
Well, margarine is definitely worse. It's much more watery, and I prefer to drink my water. And butter actually has recently been medically proved to be better for you than margarine.
Right.
So stick with good old Wisconsin butter, I say.
Great call. Appreciate it, Ollie. 855-752-4842. Zobbers?
We got a text from Megan in Sun Prairie saying, I don't know. I've never had margarine because the chefs in my family respect food too much to use it.
Wow. Hating on margarine. 855-752-4842. Let's go to Milwaukee. Beautiful Milwaukee on WMDX. Brian, butter or margarine? What's worse?
I'd have to say margarine. And I made the mistake once where I was baking and I thought margarine was healthier. And if you know what a dump cake is, you literally just take your pie filling, and I use cherry pie filling, put that in the bottom of a 9x13. You then take the chocolate cake mix, put that over, and then you're supposed to take pats of butter, put that over the top of the oven, 350 for 45 minutes, and everything melts, and you got yourself a cake. Easiest thing to make in the world.
Right.
Well, I thought, I'm going to be healthy, and I'm going to use margarine. 45 minutes later, I had the most soupiest mess in the world, and I called up my mom going, Mom, I thought you told me this was an easy cake to make, and I have to be somewhere in an hour for a potluck. What do I do?
Right.
Well, did you use butter? No, I used margarine. Well, if I tell you to use butter, you better use butter, because with baking, you have to follow the instructions.
That's so
true. I had to go out to the store and buy a cake that night. At least the thing is, with butter now, they do prove that it is healthier, and at least you can get an unsalted version of it if you want to really be healthy about it.
Well, right. There
But
you go.
that was my biggest baking mistake for the easiest thing to make in the world. I was like, how the hell did you mess up a dump cake?
By using margarine, apparently, right? Appreciate the call. Thanks, Brian. Thank you so much, and good luck on the cooking there. 855-752-4842. Kurt, listening on WMDX in Madison. Kurt, butter or margarine, what's worse?
Margarine's worse, and I did a lot of research about the agents and stuff to mitigate bacterial growth while you're sleeping at night. Well, guess what? Small pat of butter, smear it around in your mouth, swish it around, and
Wait a
chases
minute.
the bad bacteria away.
Wait a minute here. Stop the show. I want to make sure I'm understanding.
Google it.
You're saying
Google
that
it.
instead of brushing your teeth, put butter in your mouth at night? Oh, all right.
In addition?
No, I didn't say that.
All right.
I said that. Say that before you go to bed, if you take a small amount of butter and smear it, use your tongue and move it around your mouth, it'll mitigate a lot of the bad bacteria.
Really? I've learned something on the show today.
Believe me, just
Google
it.
I'm just fascinated because I've never heard this.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Kurt. Appreciate it. News you can use, 855-752-4842. Whistler up on the RC Richland Center, listening on WRCE. Whistler, butter or margarine? What's worse?
Well, I would have to say that margarine is worse. I remember back in the 50s, early 60s, my aunt and uncle lived in Chicago. Every time they'd come up to Spring Green, they'd bring 2 cases of margarine because it was cheaper than butter. So that was one of the things that happened in my young life. But yeah, I think butter is better.
Families can be split apart by stuff like that. You got to be careful.
Oh, yeah.
Appreciate it, Whistler. Have a great day up there in the RC. 855-752-4842. Let's go to Chad Holmes Country, WXCO in beautiful Wausau. Dale in Wausau. Dale, butter or margarine, what's worse?
Margarine is worse, but there's a butter. Stick butter is the best, but there's butters out there now that are spreadable butter. There's a lot of oil in that spreadable butter, and that's been shown to be detrimental to a person's health. All this oil in this spreadable butter, but stick butter is the best. Margarine is the worst.
Appreciate it, Dale. Thank you so much. They also have now, it's called hand-rolled butter, which is right from the creamery. They don't even shape it into sticks. They just take it raw and they roll it into a nice little roll. Not like more like an oblong roll, basically.
Huh.
Yeah, it's really good. Let's see here. What's worse, butter or margarine? Len, listening to WMDX in Madison, says from the aspect of saturated fats, butter is worse, but from the aspect of America's dairyland, margarine is worse. Tom in Jackson on AUK says, easy, butter is made from real dairy. It got a bad rap years ago when the corn industry paid for junk science that said butter was bad for you. Megan, we already did that one. Let's see here. What else we got? We've got Katya in Madison. Todd, what is the binary thinking? I like butter and olive oil blend. Now, that's different, I think, than what our last caller was saying. You put, and that makes it a little bit more spreadable. I think as long as it's good olive oil, I think that's fine for you as well. Although I'm not a doctor, don't take my medical advice. Tom in Jackson, AUK, says later it was proven that in the process of making corn oil to hold shape, it was not good for you.
Yeah. Continuing his earlier comment about alleged fake studies that made butter seem worse than margarine.
Yeah. And in Chippewa Falls on WCFW says, do they still sell margarine? Butter for sure is better. Yes, of course they sell margarine. Yeah, absolutely. Len in Madison, butter or margarine depends on if you want your dietary application before or after it goes into the cow. I like that. That's really good.
I will say,
yeah,
it is important to have butter alternatives for people who are lactose intolerant.
Oh, sure, exactly.
But that doesn't mean that they're good.
but they also have pills for that.
That's true. For some people, they don't work as well.
Well, take a pill. Now, I'm going to tell you a story. Well, you go. What's worse, Zombers, butter or margarine?
Margarine. I'm right. Yeah. I'm saying it's important to exist. I'm not saying I like it.
I think I've heard this years. I think I told this story a long time ago on the show. I'm going to retell it quickly. I had a and I grew up in a dairy farming family. My grandparents on my dad's side were dairy farmers, so big lover of dairy. But then, in the 80s or something like that, margarine kind of came on. As the caller said, or the texter, a lot of fake science paid for by the corn industry on margarine. And so I started kind of using margarine because it's supposed to be good for you. And I was back home from college, and my mom used to have, well, she still does have the old kind of the stove, the electric stove with the coils. And so I was going to fry an egg. And so I put margarine in the pan to fry an egg, and then the phone rang before cell phones. Yes, I know. And so I went to answer the landline, and so I put the pan on its side. Kind of one side of the pan was up on the coil of the electric burner, and one was on the end, the flat part of the stove. And I went, I forget who it was. And the phone call lasted a couple of minutes, and I went back to the stove to fry the egg. And that big glob of margarine I put in the pan to melt, there was like a big glob of whatever still up at the top of the pan, and then all this water at the bottom. And I thought to myself, I'm not putting that in my body. There's no way that can be good for you. And yes, I get it. Too much, cholesterol or too much of anything is not good for us, right? But to other callers' point, dairy, if you get like good organic butter, I mean, it's milk and salt and enzymes, and that's it. And you cannot beat great Wisconsin butter. As Ken Lewis taught me years ago, you can't beat it with a stick. So yes, margarine is worse. It ain't even, and back in the day, like Wisconsin, oleo, they used to call it oleo, was outlawed. And Wisconsin restaurants to this day, you have to carry butter on the table. That's the law. 855-752-4842. Tony in Beaver Dam. Tony, butter or margarine, what's worse? Tony,
What about oleo?
I brought it up. I said, but oleo is basically margarine.
Well, I know that, but it's got oil right in the name.
Right. So are you saying that oleo is worse than butter?
Well, of course. I said that butter is the only thing for people in Wisconsin. So
right. I'll go along with that.
Have a good day, bro.
Appreciate it, Tony. Thank you so much. Tom in Jackson says if you put margarine outside, animals won't eat it. I didn't know that. I've never put it outside for an animal to try out. Well, this was fantastic. This is a good one. Lots of feelings on this. I think overwhelmingly people have voted now that margarine is better. Margarine is worse than butter. Can we fit a quick one in? Steve in Middleton. Steve, quickly, butter or margarine, what's worse?
Margarine's worse, but I usually buy it. But you know the story about Gordy Roseslip, a Republican from down around Darlington?
Yeah,
back
tell
in
it.
the 60s.
Tell it quickly.
He claimed he tried to pass a law that you couldn't sell oleo in the state because of the butter industry and that. And he claimed he could tell the difference, so they ran a couple different demonstrations, and he could never tell the difference at all.
I know. That's a great story. Senator Gordy Roseslip. All right, come on back. We'll end up the show. It's the Almost Show on Civic Media's Radio Network. That's a true story.
Pretty good.
He made a big deal about it, so they had a contest. And he
I can always tell.
Right. Like the Pepsi challenge.
Okay, Coke and Pepsi are very different.
Yeah, it's very different. Oh.
We still have the other clip you sent, the Scott McFarlane. It's not him, but he retweeted it.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll get to that. I haven't. We had some other things.
So much.
There's so much we haven't gotten to the idiot, which we should talk since we promoted it. We'll wait until the last 7 minutes of the show to talk about the subject that we promoted.
What did we promote?
It kept you around. Probably.
What did we promote?
The 80,000 cuts for veterans.
Oh, yeah. We need to talk about that.
0000 today. Why wait?
0000.
This is Chad Spade.
Today.
Sometimes I'm overwhelmed by the hatred and misinformation that consumes our world, but I also know that we cannot build a house of justice and inclusion on a foundation of hatred and lies. We have to practice what we preach. At Chad's Design Build, we confront injustice the same way we confront a poorly built home, with love, compassion, intelligence, and persistence. We engage our community the way we engage our clients, with honesty and humility and the dogged determination that we can do better. Chad's Design Build, remodeling done well with love.
Listen to the John and Gordy.
Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. It is now 9 before the hour of 2 o'clock. At the top of the hour, little CBS News Radio or ABC News Radio, depending upon which of our great stations across the Civic Media Radio Network that you listen to, followed by a sports update with the great Mike Clemens, our sports reporter. How about them Wisconsin Badgers last night? Speaking of Ely, Minnesota, our listeners up there, although we're not on Ely yet, but music is. Wisconsin went to the barn in Minnesota last night, men's basketball, and came away a winner by 7 points, 74-67. Big game for the Badgers. Jack Janicki, this great kid from Minnesota who had D1 offers, scholarships, passed him by to come to Wisconsin. And I'm not sure if he's a walk-on. I don't believe that. I'm not sure if he has a scholarship now, but when he came, I don't think he had a scholarship. Paid his own way to play for Greg Gard and the Badgers. And Janicki came off the bench, had like 6-7 points last night. And like with 8 seconds left, took a bad shove or whatever. His face hit the floor. The poor kid chipped his, like a quarter of his front, one of his front, and he has beautiful teeth.
That is unfortunate.
And he got up and he picked his tooth up, or part of the tooth up off the floor, and went to the bench. And Coach Gard was asked after him if he was okay, and he said he'll be fine. He just looks like a hockey player right now.
Yeah.
And so I recommended my dentist to them on Twitter. I said, here, Rob Bradley, go see him. Great dentist here in Madison. But boy, the Badgers looked, the 3-point shot still not doing great, but Wisconsin, now still the number 1 free throw shooting team in America.
Very impressive.
How about that? On the other side, Marquette University, bad news for my former boss, Scott Klug. His Marquette Golden Eagles fell 72-66 last night to the UConn Huskies. But I think Marquette will be okay. They're going to win a couple of games in the tournament, I think. But with that win last night, now Wisconsin finishes up the regular season with senior night on Saturday. They take on Penn State at the Kohl Center. You can hear that game on the Civic Media app for free and on select stations broadcast over the air across the state of Wisconsin. Then on to the Big Ten tournament, which the Badgers, I believe now are right kind of tied. There's like 3 teams trying to fight for that number 4 seed in the Big Ten tournament, which means you get a double bye in the Big Ten tournament. And right now, the Badgers still forecast for a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament, which means they may be able to play their first 2 games of the big tournament in Milwaukee at the Fiserv Forum. That'd be fantastic news. A couple of this and that notes to end the show. The Supreme Court ruled 5-4 to uphold a federal judge's order that compelled the Trump administration to release funding for completed projects to contractors and recipients of grants from the U.S. Agency for International Development and the State Department, which amounts to roughly $2 billion. So we'll see if the Trump administration actually implements that, gives these life-saving foods and medications to people around the world who are dependent upon them. We shall see. Also yesterday, NBA player LeBron James scored his 50,000. Try that again, Todd. 50,000th career point. Has had 50,000 points.
Wow.
In the NBA. 50,000. LeBron James. Incredible. Great athlete. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the anti-vaxxer, get this is interesting, acknowledged the value of measles vaccines amid a deadly outbreak in Texas. How about that? I can't, the voice is so, like, I'd have to take a lot more steroids to do the voice.
I can do it, but I'm not going to do it right now because
it's hard on the voice to do
I need
it.
to work into it.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people dying of measles. So, yeah, I mean, vaccines will help. Apparently, Kennedy's motto is, you can't lose if you take both sides.
So true.
That's right.
Well, he kind of has the worst of both sides most of the time.
We did not spend as much time on this today as I had planned, but we had other things going on, as it is seemingly now every day. We mentioned it a little bit yesterday as it broke. I know Jay McNair mentioned it this morning, talked about it with Greg on their show. Department of Veterans Affairs planning an aggressive, what they're calling an aggressive reorganization that includes cutting around 80,000 jobs from the sprawling agency that provides health care to retired military members, according to an internal memo obtained by the Associated Press and others. The VA Chief of Staff, Christopher Sirik, told top-level officials at the agency that it had an objective to cut enough employees to return to 2019 staffing levels of just under 400,000. That would require terminating tens of thousands of employees after the VA expanded during the Biden administration, as well as to cover veterans impacted by burn pits under the 2022 PACT Act. This is very important. And we'll continue to talk about this because regular listeners of this show know that few people admire, honor, and respect our veterans and men and women in service and uniform more than me. And although I never served, I had the honor and privilege of working with them during my time working in the U.S. House of Representatives. The reason that Biden expanded the VA was to cover these folks who put their lives in danger overseas, particularly in Afghanistan, and were exposed to all these chemicals that caused them cancer, including Biden's late son, Beau. And Jon Stewart has done amazing work to get this for these people. And now the Trump administration says, thanks, but no thanks. We say thanks to each and every one of you. Thanks to Zommers. Brady Ewing will be here tomorrow talking Badger basketball and more. Whatever you're fighting for, whatever you believe in, do not give up. Keep banging your drum. Maggie Dawn is next.
By the way, for those of you on the stream, I looked up the thing about spreading butter around in your mouth. Don't do that. Just brush your teeth. And
I didn't want to call anybody out, but I'll simply say it seems suspect to me. It seems suspect.
As far as I can tell, the primary benefit is that it coats your teeth. So then you're not getting more bacteria on them. But then there's fat on there and it'll help plaque build up.
That ain't
just
good.
brush your teeth and then don't rinse out your mouth after. And the toothpaste coats your teeth.
There you go.
That's a much better idea.
That's a much better idea. All right.
Anyway,
Thanks,
goodbye.
everybody. Bye-bye.